I've been completely thrown off my cold open game now that I pressed the wrong button. I have my button on. I have my finger on the right button now, but I'm very upset.
You know the only way we can fix this,
How can we
Blevins?
fix it? How do we fix it?
Just go ahead and start the show.
Oh, that's a good one. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Runeterrable Radio. I'm your host, Blevins, and with me, as always, is the sauciest mailman alive.
That's me.
Saucy mailman. What's up,
Yeah.
buddy?
Due to the magic of editing, I'm just kidding. We don't edit this.
I really don't.
No, we don't. But I'm pretending like we put forth any effort. So due to the amazing technology we have to edit this, you won't hear the first 8 times we screwed up the intro. So
it was only one time, and "we" is a strong word. It was definitely just me that screwed it up because I pressed the wrong button. I had it all set up. It took the classic Runeterrable Radio cold open of a mild reference to what we were talking about in the pre-show that brings it in for the people who aren't here at twitch.tv/11s on Wednesdays at 8 Eastern. See, that was a very clever product placement that I ruined by explaining. And it's like the perfect open of it gives a little bit of a nod to the people who were here for the live show before we started recording, but also doesn't leave the podcast listeners hanging out to dry. But I ruined it.
Yep, but it's okay. The rest of the show will not be ruined.
Well, it hasn't been recorded yet, so
it's true. It's true. But this is optimistic, saucy mailman. Blevins, dude, how's your week? How are things?
It was great. Since our last episode, I did the old Masterino grind. I'm back in the master pool. I'm back.
Yeah, dude.
Masters, yeah.
I was there for a lot of it. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a cool little run. We played some. I actually only lost to one final boss. I ended up winning on the second one, and apparently, I tried to do my normal final boss music, which is War Ensemble by Slayer, because it just gets me pumped up.
It.
And it's the YouTube one where if you guys know it, you know it. It's a great one. But it failed me. My War Ensemble failed me. So chat told me to do Holy Diver, the original version, and
so good.
It's great. It's now my new. It is now my new final boss music. It's got to be.
I mean, it's good.
Dio killed it.
Dio was awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
How about you?
I was climbing. So here's my climbing story. So I was actually climbing a little too quick. I was playing deep.
Okay,
deep monsters, doing really well.
To climb with.
Yep. So then I switched. Someone wanted me to play Indoor Spiders, and like I didn't lose a game in like 6 or 7 games. So I tried to make it a little memeier. So I put in Maokai and Indoor Spiders. Kept winning. We got up to Plat 1, and then I decided to start playing Pursuit of Perfection.
Yes.
I played Pursuit of Perfection and Infinite Puff Caps back down to Plat 4. So
nice.
We went something. It was something obscene with Maokai spiders, like 17-2 or something, and it was like maybe. Yeah, I mean it was Indoor Spiders, and all we saw was burn. So
yeah,
it's just true. Instead of Trim the Mirror and Thresh and stuff, it had Maokais, which we won one game because of.
Really?
Against another, it was against the mirror match. He played his big dude, and I was able to just challenger it away and swing in.
Oh, so it wasn't even the fact that you decked them. It was the fact that he created a sapling.
No, never once did he deck anyone. It was just the saplings just pulled big dudes out of the way. That's all awesome. He did.
Just casually played a 4-mana 1/4. Nice.
Yeah, it was awesome. Sometimes you just need a 1/4. I mean, I've heard 1/4s are so good they get nerfed.
That is true. A 1/4 did get nerfed. It unfortunately doesn't cost 4 mana, but we will certainly be talking about that, as the main focus of this episode is going to be patch 1.2. I'm looking at the wrong thing. I'm looking at TFT. I'm like 10.12. I've gone so many years in the future.
I'm in the future here.
I'm in the future. What do you think? What do you think Runeterra is gonna look like when it gets to patch 10.12 in 10 years from now?
I mean, 10 years from now, it's going to be the only sport left on the planet.
Okay.
So it's going to be pretty big news when, patch 10 point whatever hits, because all other sports will actually be outlawed from the world. So it'll be pretty big news. Yeah.
It'll be like the Yu-Gi-Oh universe, except Runeterra, where you're like going around like settling disputes via Legends of Runeterra. I like it.
Yeah. They'll be like the oil crisis in North Korea was solved today by a Demacia mirror match.
Badger
It'll
bears.
still be Demacia mirrors. By the way, 10 years in the future, Demacia mirrors. That's what it's still going to be.
It's still going to be Demacia mirrors. I can't wait for the Legends of Runeterra dual deck system. For those of you working at Riot that are listening to this, please, I want nothing more than the dual deck system to come out for Legends of Runeterra.
When people ask like, "What's the next thing you want in the game?" and like some of us say, like tournament mode, and some of us say like, "Oh, I want to be able to like share decks with my friends." No, dual decks,
dual deck systems. Yeah.
That's where we're at.
Throw tournament client in the garbage. Throw spectator mode. Put it on the back burner. I want physical dual deck systems so that we can just partner with Kaiba Corp and.
Yeah, that's the world I want to live in.
It is absolutely the world that I want to live in, and I'm sure everyone listening to this episode also wants to live in. If you guys want that, make sure you send your emails to support@Riot. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, you know what world I do want to live in though? You know what world I do want to live in?
What's that?
The arcade board.
Yes.
It is so good. Oh my god.
Absolutely good. So we got this is our big balance patch. So post Rising Tides, our big balance patch here, which we'll be going over. But before, we got some cosmetics too. I wasn't really even expecting cosmetics to come this soon. We got.
Yeah, I'll be honest. The things that I care about way more than the balance patch is the Teemo emote and the Ezreal emote. They're so good.
It's so good. I think if we're throwing these, so we got 4 new emotes for those of you who don't know. First of all, if you don't know, you can go in and get a free emote right now, the Rainbow Poro emote and the Rainbow Poro Guardian. So make sure, if you are listening to this right now, go into Legends of Runeterra and get it. It is free. They both cost 0 coins, and it's only available until July 7th, which is, still a month or so, but once it's gone, it's theoretically gone forever.
For good until they bring it back in patch 10.2.
Maybe. But definitely make sure you get those for free. But we got the board. I think that the board itself is that's an A-tier board.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's so good.
I like it a little bit better than Bilgewater. I think although I do really like the Bilgewater, I really do like the Bilgewater board. I do think that the Poro board or the arcade board is pretty good. Just like overall,
it's really strong.
Yeah. It's so good.
What's your favorite thing about the Bilgewater board, real quick? Because I know what mine is specifically.
Oh, what is yours specifically?
Have you noticed the little hermit crab dude that runs across every so often?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best part. It's just every so often there's just like a little crab that runs by. It's like so cool.
That is awesome. One thing, so this is unrelated to the patch whatsoever, but so one thing that I think Hearthstone does really well that LOR is missing right now is it has interactable boards. Like you can click around the little things that you can click on the Hearthstone boards. Those are arguably one of my favorite things about Hearthstone is like the little treasures.
Rarity, when you're in the store, what rarity are the boards considered? Don't they have like a little rarity?
I think they're
gem?
blue, so rare.
Okay. So when we get the epic boards, maybe they'll be interactable.
I would love that. I would also love if they retconned it and just made all of them interactable. Well, maybe they're not going to do it. That they don't. That's I think something that would be on the low end of priorities. Dual deck system is of course at the top.
Dual deck system 1, interactable board 2. Then we got tournament mode.
Yeah,
and
tournament mode and spectator client, all these things.
Throw them out the window. Don't need them.
Don't need them. Dual deck mode. In fact, I want dual deck systems so much that I think you can actually take functionality out of the game to prioritize it over things that are already implemented.
Oh yeah,
like
yeah,
Bilgewater. We don't need another region. Just get rid of. I'm kidding.
Actually, I mean, just get rid of Demacia. No one plays it. It's the least played region in the game.
So for those of you who are new to the podcast, we're joking.
Yeah. This is one of those things called humor and sarcasm.
It's called humor and comedy in podcasting. But no,
yeah, we got a big balance.
Seriously, get rid of Demacia. Okay, but what the point I was trying to make is we have 4 new emotes. We've got the Draven like fist emote. We have the Ezreal sweating emote. We've got the Elise. I don't really know what she's doing. She's smiling. She's going maniacally. Bah. And then we've got the Teemo like card shuffling, like looking scared. Mm-hmm. I think Draven, I think that's a solid B tier emote. Elise is like B or C, I think. But Ezreal and Teemo, those might be S tier, I think. I think those are auto includes.
Yeah, they're up there. I think so. Now my favorite emotes, because this is what people really care about. I really like Thresh. I love that.
I love that
so
Thresh.
Much.
That like get in here. I love that one. That's a good BM one.
Yeah, yeah. That's really good. Ezreal Teemo, really good.
Yeah.
I use the Swain one a lot. I still like that one. I know a lot of people don't, but
that's
I like
underutilized for sure. That's a sleeper pick.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. What else is Lux? Is Lux the thumbs up?
Lux is the thumbs up. Yep.
Yeah, so I think that's actually my favorite one because that's the one that when you get beat by burn on like turn 3 because it's still broken and they're like emoting you vigorously. Yeah. They're very proud of themselves. You just give them the thumbs up like, you did it.
You got
so
there.
Proud of you.
You got there.
You drew the cards. You did the thing.
You drew the cards and you played them. Yeah.
It's also like when they shit emote you because they know they have lethal.
Yeah.
But you're playing that one stupid card that you shouldn't be playing in your deck.
Yep.
Like Riptide Rex in every deck I ever play for some reason. And then you win, and then you gotta give them the double thumbs up. It's great.
You give them
give them the double thumb.
Yeah, I want there to be a Riptide Rex emote, by the way. I think that's my number 2. It's a dual deck system, then Riptide Rex emote, then all the other stuff. Ezreal emote S tier though, just like the sweating, so just like
it's really that's when you because we're getting into the meta of emotes, right? Because some emotes you use defensively and some you use offensively. I think you can use the Ezreal one offensively, like you go in for the attack and you hit the sweating like shit, don't have the mystic shot, right? Which they do because they have 10 of them in their deck. But like the double thumbs up you use like defensively, I think.
Yeah.
I'll make a video on this.
This is where I mean, people want expedition. That's all. No one cares about that. We want emote. And we got the Poro emote. What is that? The new Poro one? Yes, the Rainbow Poro emote is like the confetti one. It's adorable.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
It's cute.
It's adorable. I think it's solid. Maybe B+, A- emote.
Yeah, I give it B+, A-. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not the big. I love Poros in general, and I like the Poro emote. I'm not the biggest Poro Guardian fan. They're just kind of like they're just Reese colors of themselves, and it's great because like. They're all free, right? Like the blue one you got for playing in beta, this one you get for free, and then the white one obviously is the default. So they're fine, but I don't know. I'm the elitist.
Actually, I need to have a different one.
Yes, actually, I prefer to have my my T-Hex. My T-Hex. I hate T-Hex, by the way, but that was the first one.
I know you do, but it's okay because he's the best.
I'm gonna get all the other ones except for T-Hex and never own T-Hex. But
next time we hang out in person, I'm going to because we'll play a game or something. I'm gonna just buy T-Hex on your account. It's gonna happen. Mark my words. This is a threat.
I'll delete my account. I don't care that it has.
I'm going to viciously, maliciously buy content for you. So there's another thing that came with this patch that's less important that people aren't talking about as much as the stickers, and that is the balance patch.
I was gonna say, this other like really small thing is that there's a ton of changes to cards and whatnot. And I'll do so we won't go over everything in entire detail, but we'll go over a decent amount of this stuff and give our opinions here. But I wanted to mention a couple things before that from the dev notes. So there's actually going to be a video from Jeff Jew and Andrew Yip, the developers, on the 29th, which is 2 days from now if you're listening live. It's I think Friday, right? 29th? Yeah, Friday at 10 a.m. PT, so 1 Eastern, or 10 a.m. Pacific, or some other time in one of the other time zones that I don't
sometime.
Some of the other fake time zones, and I know, Saucy, you're in one of the fake time zones, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't actually exist within space and time.
But their overall thoughts for balance in Rising Tides, and we don't usually read these, but since this is the first big one since the patch, I wanted to read it. So during the open beta, we learned some important things about live design and balance. Thanks again for the feedback. And we're using those lessons to add some additional metrics to our existing arsenal we use to help decide what to change and how we do it. And since we have some new players, they'll first recap existing goals and metrics, blah, blah, blah. Overall, live balance. Okay, that's all the same. So overall for live balance remains... They want live balance to remain fair and diverse metagame where every champion's gameplay dream can be realized. It's important to note that we don't expect all champions to be equally competitive at the highest level. That is an interesting note.
Yes.
However, we do want achievable gameplay moments for all of them. Okay, so a little bit of a mix there. In order to achieve this, we'll continue to update cards for balance every month, aka every other patch, in order to cultivate a healthy metagame over time. When they look at changes, when they decide on changes, they look at a number of metrics, with particularly key ones including individual card win rates, deck win rates, and champion play rates. We also want every card to have a home, which, taken with the above framework, help us decide which specific cards to test and ultimately change. This doesn't mean we expect all cards to be equally competitive or prevalent across modes. Yeah. So basically, they want every, and I apologize for all of the stream notification sounds. Thank you, everyone who is following and all that stuff. Unfortunately, we're in a podcast, so I'll get to you guys all afterwards. So for this, basically, they want every champion to have a gameplay dream realized, but not every single champion is going to be S tier and played in the top competitive ranks.
Yeah. Can I soapbox real quick? Because I want to talk about something that's been, because I've gotten into a lot of I want to say not arguments, but like energized discussions with people regarding the theories on balance in this game. So for those of us who come from other card games, I think this is the group that it's the most. Whether you come from it's a lot of Hearthstone and a lot of Magic. We're used to balancing a nerf means they just ruin the card in all forms of playability. We're used to, if something gets quote unquote nerfed, that means it's no longer playable.
Right.
In this game, when they're making balance changes, whether they be buffs or nerfs, they're not that doesn't necessarily mean they're reworking the card in its entirety or they're doing some life-changing thing. So there's been a lot of complaints so one of the changes they made was to Vi. So they've reduced her health by 1 point. And people are like, well, I think it should have still gotten rid of this keyword, or I think that it should have been 5 health that it removed, or whatever, Yeah. And I'm like, so the point is anything they're nerfing, they still want people to still be able to play the card. They just don't want it to be as powerful as where it was at. So I think as we're talking about these changes and going through it, it's something to keep in mind. Is just because something's getting buffed or nerfed doesn't mean they're adding 25 attack to Hecarim now or reverting him to his original form.
Right.
They don't want it to suddenly destroy the meta because something got a buff.
Right.
They're just, now it's a little more playable.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen over the course, I mean, Saucy, you and I have been around since literally the onset of the game. Well, the public onset of the game. As far as I know, neither of us were in any sort of closed, super secret betas. I didn't even know about. But in all reality, I didn't even know that the game was existing. It was going to exist before the announcement of it. So, the public announcement. So, so we've seen a lot of what I call burfs, where it's like, there's a small nerf and there's a small buff, which sort of shifts where the card, the card's playability on a different axis than, like you said, it's not a switch on off. It's either the best thing or unplayable.
Yeah.
It's like, we're going to tweak some numbers and we're going to maybe take some raw stats away and then increase an ability power or something like that. So,
and that's another thing with this being a digital card game in its entirety, and there's no physical cards like Magic, where like just because they make a change to the card in this patch doesn't mean they can't make another change to the card. So like,
right.
For Vi, for instance, if she's still way too powerful, Vi is just all of a sudden the best champion. It's 90% of the meta, whatever. They have the ability to nerf her again. Like this isn't her final form just because they nerf the card.
You haven't even seen my final form. Yeah, no.
It's the biggest one that I've been seeing that a lot. So I'm going to give this a real world example. So Karma is a card that got changed, a small change. So they took Karma from 5 mana to 6 mana. And so many people are bitching and complaining. She's still too strong. They should have done X, Y, and Z. And it's like, they can still change stuff.
Right. Yeah. The other thing is like, how much have you played with 6 mana Karma? How much do you know? Have you? Oh wait, it's not out yet. You haven't played it yet. I mean, it is as of this recording, but yeah.
But most of the criticism that I was getting was before people played the thing.
Yeah, and it's one thing. It's one thing. Everyone, everyone gets excited about new changes, and I have an amount of empathy for that because, like, you want a theory craft, right? It's fun to do that, but speaking in absolutes like that is just like, it leaves a sour taste in everyone's mouth because it's like, well, you don't really know, do you? Like, it's just like, it especially for the sake of Karma, like, and we can talk about Karma specific. We're gonna jump around, so
we're gonna be all over the place.
We'll start with
welcome
Karma. So welcome to Runeterrable Radio. So 6 mana from 5 mana, which does a couple of things. Obviously, it makes her more expensive. Doi.
It does.
It delays her a turn from coming out, which is like, again, doi, but it also effectively removes a card that she gives you, right? Says she can't come out on turn 5 anymore, so she's creating one fewer random spell on the unflip side. She can't do, 5 mana is an interesting cost because you can play at 10 mana, you can play a 5 cost, you can play 2 5 cost champions or a 5 cost follower and a 5 cost champion. Now you're limited to a 6 and a 4, or a 6, a 2, and a 2, that sort of thing. So it's only 1 mana, but I mean, Saucy, from being a Magic player for so many years, like the jump, one mana jump is not equal across every point. Like the jump from 0 to 1 is the biggest jump that you could make. Then the jump from 1 to 2 is probably the second biggest jump. The jump from 5 to 6 is certainly not as big as those jumps, but I think because of how mana works in Runeterra, it is a pretty big jump.
Yeah. I think it's more considerable than it seems just on paper at first glance.
Yeah, and people, when you're complaining that things didn't go enough, your point rings completely true, Saucy, is like, they can still make more changes later. And I would rather them make incremental changes than completely completely alter cards in a meta. Because, like, Karma is a very heavily played card right now. And, even you and I, Saucy, are coming at the game from a slightly different perspective in terms of playing. You're a deck brewer, an innovator, and you're making fun decks and making creative decks. I am the opposite of that. I am not creative at all in my deck building or making. So, like, if Karma's not good anymore, I don't care. And maybe you don't care either, but, like, there's some people who play the game maybe more casually, or maybe they're like, Karma was my favorite champion in League of Legends, and if she's not playable anymore, I'm less likely to play Legends of Runeterra. So,
I mean, we see that a surprising amount, especially in the more casual players. Obviously, if you're a high level tournament grinder, you don't care as much. But like, there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, I play Shin, for instance. I like Shin in League of Legends, so I'm playing Shin no matter what. And who got a slight buff as well.
Yeah. I mean, how many people have asked you to make fizz decks? Like I feel like that's like every other request for you. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
how do I be? Or people are asking like, oh, how do I build a fizz deck? What's the best way to play fizz? Or what's this? It's like, yeah. I think like this style of balancing is much more in line with actual League of Legends for obvious reasons, of it being the same company, but also less obvious reasons of like that's how you balance a video game. And yes, this is a card game, but it's a digital card game, and it's a digital first card game, not in the sense that you can do the cool things like put puff caps in someone's deck or do randomness very easily, but also like we can treat this like a video game and not necessarily like a card game where we're making small balance tweaks every few weeks. So very, very cool to do that. And Karma, I think she's still going to be played in a lot of the same spots, but maybe, I mean, you already couldn't play Karma and Lux in the same turn, right? Like that was not possible. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how much this changes in the competitive meta, but another perhaps more interesting change, or at least a more drastic change, is our boy Vlad. Saucy, you want to talk about Vlad?
So I am very excited about this change for obviously reasons.
Are you glad about Vlad?
I'm very glad about Vlad. He's one of my favorite champions in the game, but just always blows. And one of the big things is like when he leveled up, he gets a stat boost and regeneration, and it's like, all right, well, still the same thing.
Yeah.
But so now they made him where when he does his cool little it's his big suck, now it drains from the enemy nexus and heals you, and it's real cool.
Yeah. I think I don't know. I haven't had the chance to test it out yet because it obviously came out today, and but I think one of the issues with Vlad is like, I mean, he does kind of impact the board, which is good, obviously, and his effect is cool, but he's just been kind of lackluster. And it's like, if your opponent's playing an aggressive strategy and you play Vlad, and it's like, yeah, I've got a big Vlad or whatever, and I'm like dealing damage to them, but like I'm dead.
Big dude. Yep, exactly. So
now you can actually race.
So the best thing about the okay, one, it's good, right? It's just, I mean, it makes it better. It's strong.
It's a straight up buff.
It offers healing in an archetype that didn't have any before. But the best thing, this is what's S tier.
Okay.
He's like literally as a vampire. Like he's literally draining essence from them and like healing. So like the theme of this, when he does his big suck, yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah, it is awesome. I think this adds I think this adds at least a potential wrinkle to some Noxus strategies, because like you think like right now like Swain kind of added a new wrinkle to Noxus strategies, because before it was like it was just aggressive and like everything is based on attacking and overwhelm and doing that. Now it's like, well, we've kind of got more of a mid-range Noxus flavor with like Vlad was kind of doing it, but again, it was sort of awkward and a little underpowered, and Swain has been doing a pretty good job of it, but not really in the same way that Vlad does. So maybe Vlad is on the path to becoming sort of a mid-range Noxus 5-drop.
Yeah, I still don't feel like he's like incredibly powerful, and I hope I'm wrong because he's super cool. But
yeah, he is.
Like there was that one time where I had he had the Callista treatment, and I like all of my YouTube videos were Vlad decks for a while. We were doing like Hecarim Vlad and Garen Vlad, blah blah blah. So yeah, I've got some stupid ideas, and I'm just gonna let you guys know the deck that's gonna break the entire game, Dreadway Vlad.
Ooh, So wait, does it double? Deck. Wait, does it double? Does it get like the double? So it'll do 2 to all of your stuff, and then deal all of that, which is already doubled because it's 2, and then double that total.
I don't know, but that'd be sweet.
That would be sweet. I haven't tested it yet. I am now very interested, because it would do so. Like if there's 3 things that it drains, it would do 2, 4, 6. Right, because each one would get 2 instead of 1 because of Dreadway, and then that 6 would be doubled to 12 potentially. I don't know if that's how it works, but that would be
Nope.
cool.
Nope, I don't think it does.
Oh well. My
Just
third
thinking about
thing
how,
behind dual death.
how like grasp works, because grasp just does 6 and heals 6.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. That
But
makes sense.
if you have 2 Dreadways, okay, we're good.
Ooh.
I haven't tested it. I was just talking about this in the Discord today, and I'm like, Dreadway Vlad, man, that's just gonna be the deck. It's not gonna be good, but it's gonna
it's
be
gonna be
the deck.
the deck.
Yep.
Speaking of maybe not being good, but potentially being the deck, we've also got a change to Shen. We got a nice little tick in the power slot. He's going from 2 power up to 3, and then of course his leveled up version is going from 3 to 4 power. Still like underpowered, I think, and
yeah,
in a
I don't
weird
think this
spot.
addresses any of the problems with why Shin isn't good.
Yeah.
Shin's an interesting card, and he's one that I put in the category of when he's too good, he's kind of broken and unfun to play against. Like his effect is very strong, giving barrier, and so many people are like, he should get barrier when he attacks too, and I'm like, no, that suddenly is not
Have you
not
ever
a fun game to play.
Have you ever played against Bright Steel formation?
Yeah,
it's not
it's
the
like
best.
A 4 mana Bright Steel.
Yeah, it's good because it's a 9/9, but that's not the reason it's good.
Yeah, exactly. Like this obviously getting just a strict power bump is better. Yes, that is a buff. Does this suddenly make me want to play Shen? Not in the slightest.
Yeah, well, we saw a little bit of Shen get played for a small amount. I think it was Super JJ who got like top something in EU, maybe even got number 1 rank in EU like early on in the closed beta with Fiora Shen. Yeah. But like we've seen so many other iterations of Fiora, even like heavily Fiora based lists that are not using Shen. Like Shen is not the way to do it right now. So
yeah, a lot of them are using like Fizz. I've seen Fizz Fiora. That one's interesting, and there's a lot of stuff. Fiora was just good.
Yeah, I mean Fiora plus Unyielding Spirit with pretty much anything else is gonna be okay at least against some decks. So and again, like Shen is an Ionia card, but feels very much like a Demacia card, or even like a Noxus-ish card, or like a Bilgewater type card, where it's like he's very combat focused and he is helping combat and helping units, and it's like it's just not really that good in Ionia. It's like you want it's like the blue card that is like a creature based card. It's like, okay, if there's a lot of this, it's usually kind of good, like Merfolk, but if it's just one off, it's just kind of awkward.
Yeah. It's just support's hard to balance, and they recognize that as game devs. But it's tough because like the creature, like the unit itself, you're not playing for its body, you're playing for the effect when it buffs. Like think about War Chefs, right?
Right.
But the thing is, when it's attacking, it leaves itself naked. Like it's not doing anything to protect itself. So, a lot of times it just dies in combat, which you don't really want on your Shin. So it's tough. It's tough, especially because he's got an effect where he needs to see the thing. So
yeah, it's yeah. So I think he's again maybe a small step towards. And again, I think this is still reasonable in Expedition, which is another thing that we don't really talk too much about, but it's going to be a nice bump in Expedition. In fact, Shen is extremely annoying in Expedition. He's just a strong card, but let's talk about something that is very relevant in competitive play and elsewhere. Vi is now a 4 health champion, down from 5. Still has tough, still has challenger and everything else, but getting a slight health nerf. Saucy, what do you think about this change overall?
I think it's good. She was a little overtuned. When you're reducing the health of a tough unit, it's like more exponential than it seems. Just because of how the way tough works, it's blah blah blah. So it is a little more than it seems on paper. I think she's still totally fine. I think she's still a strong card. She's just not impossible to deal with when she hits the board.
Yeah, she still is strong against a lot of the things that she was strong against before. The biggest, I think, we talk about break points in terms of health and different numbers. The biggest break point that happened is that she now trades, instead of just eating most other 5-drops, she now trades with 5-drops in a lot of cases.
Exactly.
Like 5 power.
Mhm.
If you have a 5 power unit, it's usually unless it's like a Noxus like 5/1 or something, it's usually a 5-drop. It's sort of where the base is 5 mana 5/5. When your 5 mana 5/5 just gets eaten straight up by a 5 mana champion, that's a tough pill to swallow. And when you can't even like finish, like a champion eating a follower is okay if it's the same mana, but like when you can't even like use a Vile Feast or something to like it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, and she's also like champions like this are very dangerous when they're too strong as well. When they're so neutral and generic that you can put it in literally any deck that has Piltoverns on.
Yeah.
Like there's no cost associated with building a deck around Vi. You just put her in.
Yeah.
Like, and she's kind of like TF. Like he's just super strong on his own. You can just put it in a deck. She kind of feels like that. And if if champions like that are way too strong, that's when we see OG Hecarim, where it's just like, yeah, you just play him because it's Hecarim, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you don't just want the stat bot that you're just playing because it's like so strong. It's like that's just kind of. And Vi, I mean, we talked about this when we saw Vi originally. It's like Vi kind of feels like that. She's got an ability and like you can flip her and stuff, but it's just like she's just getting more stats and then does more stats worth of stuff and like does more damage. It's like,
exactly.
So I think this makes Vi feel more fair and a little bit easier to deal with, but not like out of the question strong or anything like that. I think she's still going to see close to the same amount of play that she was now, or that she is now.
She's still good.
Next up, we got the aforementioned Hecarim, who's getting a power buff, going up from 4 power to 5 power, and then 5 power to 6 power on the flip side. So a little +1 on the attack side for Hecarim.
I think it's reasonable. It's obviously not as insane as if he got his health reverted, because that was gross.
Yeah.
Obviously, it feels kind of like Shin. Like I feel like it is obviously a little better, some percentage better, but it's not. I don't think it's enough to suddenly make Hecarim decks rule the ladder again.
Yeah, I don't think they'll rule the ladder. I just think it'll be like he's now closer.
A consideration.
Yeah, he's now a consideration where like if you a deck that might usually run Thresh, who's been seeing a decent amount of play, like as a one of or something, like if it wants to be more on the aggressive side, maybe Hecarim comes in. There's been a little bit of Hecarim play in competitive, but not like we saw before for sure. The Spectral Riders nerf was huge, but I think especially even more so than Shen because he has Overwhelm and his attack is actually relevant to what he's doing. The +1 feels a little bit more impactful, but overall, I agree. I think this might push Hecarim, like give Hecarim the little nudge that he needed, whereas Shen was like, he wasn't in the ballpark, and they just pointed to the right direction to they just gave him a map of directions to get there. Hecarim was outside and got nudged in. Maybe
Shen needs some kind of rework. So
yeah, Shen needs a.
But that's fine.
That's
fine.
Not everything needs to be the most playable thing, which is what they mentioned before. Okay, so that is champion changes. Let us know. I know we got a lot of folks in chat right now. Let us know which ones you like the most. Maybe we'll talk about them at the end of the show. What you like and what you don't like is what we're looking for here. Let's move on to followers. And Saucy, the moose is loose.
Unloose the moose.
Yeah, we unloosed it. Is now Great Horn Companion going from a 4/5 up to a 5/5.
Yep, the card that you only ever see when you play Remembrance now just got stronger.
Yeah, indirect Remembrance buff. This card, again, not really seeing any play. I don't think this will change that. When the real eye-opening thing for me with Great Horn Companion is the 5-mana Bilgewater card. That gives an enemy vulnerable permanently. That's a 4/4 with Scout. It just made this card look embarrassing. Like, yes, it's a different region, but like, shouldn't Demacia have the bigger guys? Yeah.
So it is interesting though because of how Scout work when they adjust the power level, like the actual attack
Yeah.
value, because it kind of can attack twice.
Yes.
So just thinking about that, that's doing 10 damage unchecked versus 8 damage.
Yeah.
So it is a decent buff, but I don't know if it's enough to suddenly see the moosin taking
Yeah,
over.
the Musin is certainly correct here. The other note here is Demacia. It has a whole slew of very good and playable 5-drops, and I mean this is now in the mix. I don't think it's gonna. I don't think it pushes over the top, but it certainly good. And I mean Remembrance has certainly been now better. So. Ooh, let's talk about this is a big one. Old Grizzled Ranger, Bertrand
This is
himself,
a big one. Yep.
down to 3 power from 4 power, and I guess we'll talk about this in conjunction. Loyal Badger Bear, Beamer, is now 3/4.
Yep.
We have Saucy, you thought you could avoid Spider Tank. It's back.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. How do you feel about this at first glance?
Ooh, it's pretty big. I think
Yeah.
I think at the very least, Grizzled Ranger is still very playable.
Yeah.
Badger Bear, it's going to. So Badger Bear being worse, I think at least right now, off the top of my head, is still probably good. Although, I mean, you're getting close because a 4/4 is very much better than a 3/3. A 3/4 is still much better, but a 3/4 better than a 3/3 with an ability. That is at least
Exactly.
a conversation. So, I forget the name of the card, but the 3/3, if something died, draw a card. That's now I think back in consideration. So it's like drawing a card is certainly better than 1 health in a lot of cases.
Yep.
It's
Oh
not.
yeah.
It's not always better than a 4/4, and from play rates, we almost never saw that card. Badger Bear
You're
just
talking
did.
about the Vanguard Redeemer, right?
Yeah, Vanguard Redeemer. Uh,
Yeah.
the Badger Bear just did so much on attack, on defense. It was just it did it all. Like it was just too much stats in one thing. So, I think Grizzled Ranger is now better because, or it's in a better spot. It's not better, obviously. It's much worse.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with Grizzled Ranger was not that it was a powerful, aggressive card. It was that there was zero efficient ways to deal with it.
Yeah.
Fully. Like you think, okay, it's a 4, before the nerf. Oh, it's a 4/1. Okay, so inherently you'd think, oh, something like Vile Feast should be a good counter to that. Nope, they still just
Not
have
really.
a 4/4. And like you
Yeah.
spent the card and
Exactly. They took a card from you and then still got the dude. Like,
right. Yeah, so it was never efficient. I mean, there's very few obliterate cards, and none of them are cheap. Even something like Purify, again, you're still like need to trade. Like if you had a Vile Feast and a Purify, it's like okay, well then you just spent the same amount of mana and traded 2 cards for 1. Like you're still down.
Yep.
Like there's no good way to deal with it that was mana efficient. So this might still be the case, but at least now like you have a 4 health unit and you can at least stave it off, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like the same thing as with the Moose is now this is, 6 damage versus 8, which is
Right.
considerable. I think my biggest problem with the Grizzled Ranger was you felt bad if you weren't playing it in a Demacia deck every time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like a deck or a card that's like that required in a region. Like I was rebuilding Dawn Speaker Callista,
Yes.
and we put this in there. We're like, well, we're in Demacia. I guess we have to play Grizzled Ranger or we're just wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just I don't like cards that are on that level. So that there's just like no downside of playing it.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same, at least a similar way with Loyal Badger Bear. I mean, you think about Dawn Speaker Callista, like you'd think, oh, I want to have the 2 mana 1/1 Last Breath make a 4/4, right? Well, it's like I'm sorry, I'm forgetting all the names of the cards. You want to play that card, right? Because that's like your combo. But it's like, well, I can like pay 1 less mana and jump through a hoop to get a 4/4, or I can just pay 1 more mana and get a 4/4 no matter what. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
well, I guess
exactly.
I'm playing Loyal Badger Bear over these cards because it's like just more stats. Which
Yeah,
again,
exactly.
I'm not necessarily against having like strong statted units at some points, but it's like it's just kind of boring and literally vanilla, which is not always bad, but it's just like, and I think it's helpful for new players and all that stuff, but it's like at some point I would rather have the option to like it's a more meaningful conversation to play a 3/3 if something died, draw a card versus a 3/4 for the same amount. Like that's at least a meaningful conversation and a thought, and maybe it's deck dependent, which I think is great. So
yeah, I prefer that a lot.
I'm unsure if old Bertrand and Boomer, or not Boomer, Beamer are going to be the same staples as they once were. I think that the 3 attack is a much, I mean, we talk about 4 being a really big break point. They're certainly much worse. But I think that they're still going to find their place in a lot of spots.
Fact. Truth.
Next up, we have Laurent Chevalier. Is going from a 3/1 to a 3/2. I think this is a strictly expedition change. I don't think we're not seeing Laurent Chevalier played in constructed too much. So he's a relatively good card. It's just like
he's really cool. I really like his effect. He's just not like good enough to put in a constructed deck most of the time.
He's a cool in that he has there's a few cards that have the strike ability, not last breath and not Nexus Strike. So it's like if you can give him Divine Shield, he's super good because he's just creating a random challenger, so effectively drawing a card that with challenger. Better than drawing a card. Well, it's different than drawing a card. It's not taking a card from your deck. It's just creating a new card. So it's pure card advantage. The problem, as someone who played him a lot in expeditions, he just dies to Vile Feast and trades with a spider and all that stuff. It's like now, like you literally dies to everything. So you never really got the advantage of that of the strike ability without jumping through a big hoop. And it's like, I'm not really willing to jump through that hoop. Now at least you can eat a spider and get a second strike, which is really good. So.
Now, he is going to break the meta when we get the champion that levels up when he's seen you challenge X amount of units.
Ooh, yeah, he will be. He could be a key piece there.
Great. But until then, and that's coming, I think, in patch 3.4.
Okay, so we're still a few years away from that, but it'll come.
Yeah, but it's going to be strong.
So I don't know. That would be funny. Now, if that is prophecy, you can look back to this video. Also, I hope we don't get in trouble because we actually are just making a complete guess.
But I'm not guessing. I'm a time traveler.
I've got no transition from time traveling, but standalone got a nerf. Is now going from getting the deny treatment going from 3 cost to 4. Actually, a huge difference.
Yeah, it's massive because anyone who's played the game knows you can store 3 spell mana.
Yeah,
you can't store 4 spell mana.
True.
There's a cost.
I gotta say, and I'm gonna sound biased here. Good riddance. Screw this card. It did no one any good.
I'm not a fan.
One of those cards that it very clearly is trying to create a scenario, like the dream scenario of like it's your last unit and is standing alone and fighting against everything. It's like, well, when that's an elusive unit or a Fiora and you have rallies, it's like that goes from being cool to being degenerate extremely quickly. And being able to go turn 1 pass, turn 2 pass, turn 3 drop that's either Fiora or an elusive and standalone and it's burst. Yeah, it's a feel bad. That's a real feel bad.
It's rough. Huge nerf, and I agree. I'm okay with this card getting nerfed. This is one of those cards that puts a lot of unfun scenarios.
Yes.
And I mean, it's one of the most hated cards that I get told about, like, F-wording, hate, stand alone. And the F word is Firestone.
I Firestone hate standalone. That rhymes.
Yeah, I get it all the time.
That rhymes.
You hate to see it.
Yeah. Firestone to see it. That doesn't make sense.
Nope.
yeah, I think all the things we said. The deny treatment, and we talked at length about deny early on, but it actually costing a resource that you have to spend on that turn is huge. It's again much like my argument with Grizzled Ranger. There's just no efficient way to deal with it, right? Or there wasn't. Now,
Yeah.
like Will of Ionia is at least a mana trade, but like it's
Yeah,
a
exactly.
burst. Which I think buff spells like this should probably be burst if you want them to be playable. If you want them to be like swingy, you can make them fast, but like as we know as Magic players, like auras are in general bad because you get blown out. Burst makes it so that you at least get your buff, which I think in general is an all right strategy, but like this is at 3 mana it was just never dealable. Like you'd think again something like Mystic Shot or a hard removal spell can deal with it, but like Mystic Shot does nothing. You can't even react. The hard removal costs twice, actually more than twice as much as this. Something like Grasp is just counters the health gained from this, so it doesn't even do anything else. So 4 mana, more reasonable. We'll probably see a lot less play. Speaking of seeing a lot less play, we now have Legion Rearguard is now a 1 mana 3/1 that can't block instead of a 1 mana 3/2. This is big.
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, we don't need to go too deep into the same thing we say all the time, but the opposite, going from 2 health to 1, now all of a sudden, and since this can't block, it's even worse. So like it can't, because usually with Rearguard you can attack and there's not everything on the planet that's a 1-drop can trade into this. Now literally every 1-drop blocks this.
Spider killing this is just massive. Vile Feast.
And Vile Feast.
Just
Vile Feast is like the biggest one because I mean that gets played. Or I mean Thermo Beam on 1 can deal with it too now.
Thermo Beam on 1. It now gets randomly killed by Whale. It also now can no longer take a Demolitionist tick without dying. So like,
or all of the like transfusion stuff and all that.
All the good things about it having that 1 extra health, which was kind of inconspicuous, is actually extremely conspicuous, and I think you will start to see that.
Can't get past me.
That's the joke, is that literally everything can. We now have actually this is a new card added to Runeterra, Saucy. This is Earthen Ring Farseer.
The kindly tavern keeper.
Getting a 1 power buff from 2 up to 3, which for you Hearthstone people makes this technically slightly different, but for all intents and purposes, exactly an Earthen Ring Farseer. 3 mana 3/3 that heals an ally or Nexus for 3. When I first saw this, I was like, holy crap, this seems stronger than it needs to be. But then I remembered it's in Freljord, so
that's kind of the big thing. I think if this was in any other region, it'd see a lot more play. But like the decks that like when you're in Freljord, you usually don't want to be playing this stuff. But I don't know, maybe it's good enough to see. I think the biggest thing, I don't think this affects ladder that much, but I think it affects tournaments a lot more. Because this is a super sweet tech card for a tournament deck. Because sometimes you need a little bit of play. Exactly. Like that's where we're seeing cards like this where, you know, if the meta is all these burn decks, well, you're gonna need more healing in your Freljord deck if you're running Freljord, right? So it's sick. I think it's a clean buff because 2/3 for 3 just doesn't feel great. But now it feels reasonable. Even if it's just a vanilla dude, like it's not bad.
Yeah. When like Riot Devils, which isn't even the most popular card at that cost, but in Magic, it's a 3 mana 2/3. That's what I call it because I love Innistrad. That's like sort of the standard for like mediocre 3-drop. 3 mana 3/3 is the gold standard. In Hearthstone, it's even worse because like and in Runeterra, because like 2 mana 2/3s and 2 mana 3/2s are all the rage, right? 3 mana 3/3 is kind of the gold standard in these games, and I mean, if you're taking any sort of note from Hearthstone's book, like Earthen Ring Farseer, saw play, and I'm not up with the meta now, but probably still sees at least a decent amount of play now, and it's been out since literally the beginning of the game. 3 mana 3/3 heals 3. it's just a solid card, and I don't mind that. I don't mind this card being there. Again, Freljord very weak right now in general. The the 2 attack version of Kindly Tavern Keeper was already seeing play, and now this I think just pushes it over.
He heals an ally. I actually won a game because of this the other day, not because it was in my deck, but because I took it from my opponent's deck, of course. But I used it to heal my Fizz out of range of being killed.
Nice.
So it was awesome. Heal up those allies.
Yeah.
Heal up those allies.
I mean, I'm also a low-key, just like longtime fan of Freljord Ezreal, and this is sometimes a card that's using that, and I think it'll be even more so a card using it. So I'm happy. I'm happy. I like this card a lot.
Freljord needs help, so let's keep on buffing up the Freljord.
Yeah, to a point, but it can get scary. But speaking of scary cards, Deep Meditation getting a nerf, going from 4 cost up to 5.
Yep.
This just makes me wonder how this card ever cost 4. Like, it's so
this was the very first card when the set was spoiled that I said this card will get nerfed.
Yeah.
I said it right away. There's no way this card lives through the first balance patch.
Yeah.
Drawing 2 cards for 2 at burst speed is dumb.
Yeah.
So
especially when
at least now it's a little more reasonable.
Cards.
Yeah. You can tutor effectively.
Yeah.
It's
dumb.
Good.
It was so stupid powerful. This is I mean, it just, even just looking at it right now on the page, it just looks better at 5. Like this is what it should be. This feels like a 5 mana card. Honestly, it could be maybe even a 6 mana card. But you know, getting reduced down to that 3 mana, I think still keeps it like it gets, you're doing work to get a burst speed, you know, divination or whatever. I think that's reasonable. This is just, it was, having costed 4 is still kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
Oh boy, here's one that hits close to home for me. Our boy Boom Crew Rookie getting a health nerf from 4 down to 3. He has been a staple in Burn. He's been, I think, he's been really the driving force in a lot of these Piltover and Zon based Burn decks. He's just been the best 2-drop that you can play in these Burn decks for a long time, and now he's still good for sure, but it is he's certainly a lot worse here, losing that 1 health.
Yeah, Boom Crew Rookie needed adjusted. Like you said, he's just the go-to 2-drop, right? And he's actually the reason a lot of decks even play Piltover and Zon.
Yeah.
Like there's so many like building decks, like, man, like especially with Gangplank, I'm like, I really want to play Boom Crew Rookie, so I guess we're playing PNZ.
Yep.
I think that this is a good change to the card. I like it at 3 health. 4 is honestly the difference between attacking twice and attacking 3 times with this card.
Yes.
And being able to attack twice and block, or being able to attack once and block once. It's huge, but I'm very, 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 very glad, and thank you, Riot, from the bottom of my heart, that they didn't just revert it back to a 0/4.
Oh yeah.
Because I hate this card as a 0/4.
Yep.
I think it needs to have an attack value.
What if it was just what if it was a 0/4 elusive with that ability? That would be broken.
That'd be insane.
That'd be so much better.
Dude, that card would be gross, and I'd be playing like standalone Boom Crew Rookie.
Oh god, I put that out. I put that nonsense out in the universe now, didn't I? Oh no.
So let's go to patch 4.3 back into the future.
Yeah.
Where they're gonna have to nerf the new Boom Crew Rookie that is an elusive 0/4 with deal 2.
Yeah. Oh god,
that's gross. I hate that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could Sumpworks map him.
Yeah,
whatever.
But I mean, then once you start adding another card into the equation, I'm out. You
can Battle Fury him and Sumpworks map him, and Boom Crew Rookie.
I saw you were actually playing Battle Fury Fizz, the old BFF, the first deck I thought of when I saw the card.
It's my favorite deck right now.
So good. So we didn't see a change reverted from Boom Crew Rookie, but we did see a change reverted from Brood Awakening, going back to 6 cost from 5.
This is it's such an interesting card, and I got into, actually on YouTube of all places, a really good discussion about this card with someone, and they said they're just talking about the fact like it's not a bad thing to like. It doesn't mean the card is imbalanced or broken if they keep changing its anything about the card.
Yeah.
Like if they even were to just keep bouncing this card back around depending on the meta, I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, I think it's a really creative thing to do, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's cool because that's one way you can control a lot of decks that you're seeing. Like it's cool, and I mean this definitely makes indoor spiders weaker. And the other deck that we're seeing obviously is Karina control.
Yep.
I think it's definitely a lot weaker in that.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it changing though. I don't think cards have to be staples forever.
Right. In fact, it's just more fun when they're not. This is going to be an interesting case because if I recall correctly, the card saw close to 0 play at 6 mana the first whip.
Didn't see any play.
I don't remember.
No one knew it existed.
It goes to 5 mana.
It was one of those new card moments.
Yeah. What? This is a card? It goes to 5 mana. All of a sudden, everyone starts to play it, and it's just like in the Elise package that you add to both aggro and control alike. I'm interested to see, since like it's going back to 6 mana, but it's not going to the same perception, right? Like there's that sort of it's more like I think it's a stock market term, but I obviously thought of it for Magic. It's called price permanence or something like that, where it's like even if a card goes severely down in value, there's still something to be said about the fact that it used to be a $50 card. Even though it's a $10 card now, it used to be $50, and there's something about that psychologically about knowing that this was a $50 card, and maybe you can go back to that. So, even though this is a worse card now, I think people will still play it at least a lot more than they did the first time around when they didn't realize it was a card.
Now we know it's good. So
yeah, it didn't go to 7 mana because like it's still like pass, turn 3, play this. It's just now you don't have the 1 extra mana and you can't play like a 1-drop in that sequence, right? Which is worse for sure, but I think it's still going to be strong. And then like Karina, even though every spell mana is very relevant in Karina, it's still probably good enough. If I had to think.
I think it goes from the auto include 3 of in every deck that has Shadow Isles to not necessarily being an auto include and sometimes being like a 1 or 2 of. So which is fine.
Also makes you feel worse against something like Whale because you're now losing a mana. You're now a mana down on that exchange.
Yep, exactly.
It feels even worse. It already felt bad, but now it feels even worse. Okay, next up is Longtooth, which is created, of course, from Chum the Waters or Fizz's Chum the Waters. Is now getting a health buff from 5/1 up to 5/2. Saucy, I know you're a Fizz connoisseur. How does this feel for you?
Much better, that's for sure. We were doing a Fizz tribute stream the other day. I mean, it's just a regular stream, right? But like the amount of times that Longtooth was relevant was about 0 because 100% of the time he gets Vile Feasted. It is better. I think the more systematic issue with Chum the Waters is not that Longtooth is shit. It's that it's a slow spell that makes a shit minion. But it is, I mean, it does help a lot. It's never good enough to just play Chum the Waters now. You don't going to be playing that card. But when you get it from Fizz, it's less bad. And it lets you block with the card now too. So
that is true.
It's all right. Keeps you, sometimes that might be relevant, but
it's a card that I think is cool because I think sharks and I just like sharks and like the cartoon sharks, and Fizz is cool. I also don't want a card that is generated relatively easily off of a 1-drop champion to be super good. So I want this to be like I would almost be happy if they made Longtooth even better, like they made him like, I don't know, a 6/3 or 7/3, but made Chum the Waters cost like 6 mana or something like that. That would be an interesting change because like I don't want the like, oh man, you hit with Fizz and now you get like if Longtooth was like if Chum the Waters was like a 2 mana and created a 3/2, I think that would be like super broken. But
well, and the reason like I'm playing devil's advocate with myself because looking at as a card design, like from a designer standpoint, Chum the Waters should be a fast spell, but you can't make Chum the Waters a fast spell because Fizz cannot generate a spell that protects himself. That is not fair.
Yep.
So it has to be slow.
Yep.
And so because of that, they're limited. They can't make it a fast or burst spell, obviously. So they have to keep it at slow speed. So all they can do is either adjust the mana cost or what the card does. And in this case, they adjusted what it does by making Longtooth less bad.
Yep. Overall, again, a nice little nudge. Maybe we'll see some chum in the waters here or there. I doubt it, but maybe. And
Yeah.
makes it closer. Okay. Next up is Monkey Idol, which is getting a health buff from 4 up to 5. Saucy, I'm gonna be honest, I couldn't tell you what a powder monkey is.
Yeah. This is a cool change, I will say. The powder monkeys are what, 2/1s with ephemeral?
Sure.
Yeah, I think they are. I think they might have another thing too. I know they have ephemeral. I don't think they have challenger. Maybe they have challenger. I don't know. This is a very, very cool change. Because this generates a third monkey just on stats alone.
Yep.
So it's one entire extra monkey.
Yeah.
Or a Vlad tick.
Ooh, true.
So that's technically a thing. Monkey Idol's really cool. It's a deck people keep requesting I do with Unyielding Spirit, which I don't think I'm gonna do because kegs are just cooler. But at least this does make the card way less garbage. It's still not quote unquote good, but it's much more playable, like considerably.
Yeah.
I think it's actually like a considerable bump.
Yeah, it's a cool type of card, and I think even if Monkey Idol itself isn't playable right now, A, they can buff it to make it playable. B, it also is like it's the closest. I mean, a Monkey Idol and kegs to an extent are kind of like artifacts in Magic, where it's like they're not units. I mean, they technically are, but they like can't attack, can't block, so they're not doing the core thing that a follower or a unit does, but they're creating something.
So the monkey, I have not played one of these. I'm going to be completely honest.
Neither
because
have
I never.
No idea.
So the powder monkeys are a little cooler than I thought because they're 1 mana 2/1s ephemeral with last breath, deal 1 to the enemy nexus.
Oh,
so they're
okay.
big casks.
Yeah,
big costly casks.
They only do the casks to your opponent though, which is good.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
I like this a lot more with Vlad now.
Yeah, you can get some real damage off. So, yeah, I think it's a cool card. It's a cool concept, and it's a cool again, it's tough because it's also taking up a spot on your board, which is always, that is a limited resource, and it's filling it with a monkey, which is also a limited resource. So, and I don't think that the Monkey Idol on its own, even if you're proccing it, is able to sustain a win condition, but it is a cool card. For sure, and I think that's what it's meant to be, so I like it.
Yeah, it's really cool. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. And the last card changed here is another cool card that I feel like I see people talk about all the time, which is kind of weird because it's just a weird card, but Slotbot is going from a 0/3 up to a 1/4, so a full chunky +1/+1 on the Slotbot.
Yeah. This is a very big change that I'm excited about. Not because I think suddenly Slotbot's super strong, but it is way more playable.
Yeah.
This is the Boom Crew rookie treatment because it originally had no attack, and then now it's going from an 0/3 to a 1/4.
Yeah.
Having stats the turn it's played is so relevant because the time that Slotbot dies is the first turn that it's out. Every time. So this is cool. It's huge.
Yeah, and I mean going from on his first, roll, having 4 stats total to having 6 stats is huge because 6 stats, that's 3/3, a 3-mana 3/3. That's right on curve. This is almost like if on average he's a 3-mana 3/3 on his first tick, that's already like a playable card, right? Yeah. And he could be a 2/4, all that stuff. And then his next one, he is getting 7. So every turn he's getting better and better. And he's all it's the, to use a phrase from Magic, it's like the vanilla test. And it doesn't apply exactly here, but he's on average on his first roll, he's going to be a 3-mana 3/3. That's the vanilla test. Before he was a 3-mana 2/2. That does not pass in this game. 3-mana 3/3 does pass that test, at least pretty close. And then sometimes he's going to be, well, he's not really going to, a 2/4 is 3/3 mana, 3/3 is actually probably the best stat line for that. But like sometimes in some situations, it's going to be better for him to be something else. In some situations, it's going to be worse. And then he just gets better.
That's the whole thing of the card. You don't get to pick.
Yep. That's the fun of it.
Rolling the dice.
They should make they should make a promotional IRL slot bot that has a little like you actually roll the card, like it actually rolls it, or it's a digital thing. That would be sweet.
It looks like a life tracker in Magic the Gathering.
It does. Like, the little spin one.
That's what I thought it was at first. I'm like, oh, okay, I see what it is now.
It looks really cool. I like it a lot. So
yeah,
those are the card changes. Let us know in the comments or on Discord what you guys thought about those, because it's just a fun discussion. We've already been talking about it a lot in the Discord. Again, discord.me/Runeterrable Radio. A lot of discussion there about the new cards, and it's just been fun getting people's opinions on that and what they think is good and what's not. But the last bit of the patch to talk about here are the watch list, and there's a couple of there's a couple of cards and I guess groupings of cards that are on here, and the first I think is probably the most controversial, and that's Unyielding Spirit. And their statement on Unyielding Spirit being on the watch list is: Unyielding Spirit has been among the more contentious cards in Rising Tides due to its powerful burst speed effect and ability to circumvent opponents' interaction. This card offers some unique challenges in adjusting, as a quick numbers change is more likely to push this card out of playability rather than addressing any core issues. So for now, we're watch listing it while considering adjustments. So a couple of key things here. They realize that just making it a 9-mana card or a 10-mana or whatever, just making it cost more, it's just going to push it out of playability. So they are trying to find a more elegant way to change the card and balance the card, which is nice.
Yeah, this is a tough one. It's very, very difficult. And this is like the first time that I've ever, like, more than anything, really wanted to be on the actual like balance design team, because there's so many things I want to try with the card, but I'm not going to say like what I think they should do to it, because without testing it, you literally can't figure that out. It's tough though, because I love this effect. I think this effect should exist in the game. I don't think it should be an 8-mana burst spell. I think there's something that should change to it. I've heard a lot of cool ideas. I've heard that it should be followers only, so you can't put it on champions. I've heard they should like a potential put a mana like cap on it to where you can only use it on followers that or units that cost X or less. That could be interesting. Or it only lasts for a certain amount of rounds, or not burst speed. There's so many things. Like there's an insane amount, and it's so hard. And like for a balance designer, please give them more credit, because you can't just like make a change and roll with it. This is one of those cards that if it's like, it's the same thing. Like if they change it too much, you don't see it anymore. And I think it's cool. So I don't know. I think it should be in the game at some point.
Yeah, I think, and this is actually coming up in the chat. Thank you guys for tuning in and putting in suggestions and continuing the conversation. I think the biggest thing that people suggest is making this not a burst speed spell. And again, this goes back to the other things we talked about. Aura, if you come from Magic, you know this, and you've played at any sort of competitive level, you know this as an unwritten rule or law of Magic. Auras suck. Using an aura to pump up your guy, whether it's a power buff or giving them a cool ability, really, really sucks inherently, because your opponent goes, in response, I kill it. And you are down 2 cards, and I'm only down 1, and as we know, that's really good. There's a lot of other,
especially since it is so much mana, like an 8-mana spell that just gets
an
negated.
8-mana aura. I can think of one, although I don't know if it's 8 mana. There's only one like expensive aura that ever sees play, and it's not played straight up. It's cheated into play, and that's like Eldrazi Conscription or whatever.
Oh, in Magic,
in Magic, Those cards, like, and the only other auras that are really played are played on units that can't be targeted, like boggles
Yeah.
or whatever. Like,
Yeah, you have to.
or
The auras in this game, or like when we're saying auras, as in like a creature buff for those who don't come from Magic.
Yeah.
So something that buffs up a creature.
Spell. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be really. Yeah, if you made it not burst, it suddenly can't be played. I think if they were to change it to a slower casting speed, so if they made it a fast spell, they would have to reduce its mana cost to compensate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's some interesting. Someone in the chat says, "What if it gave barrier at the start of each round?" That's an interesting way to change it.
That'd be a really. I mean, that's a cool card. They changed the effect altogether, but a card like that is pretty cool. I mean, we've seen how good Bright Steel formation is.
Sure. I mean, it's definitely an interesting card. I mean, you can drastically change the card and make it playable and make it different, which is fine. And again, that's why I agree with you, Saucy. I'm curious to see what the design team's thoughts are on that, because there is a number of ways that you can change it to keep it maybe its core of what it's doing, of, you know, the unyielding spirit. It's like, I can never die because I have the strength of will or whatever. So I don't know.
Exactly.
Interesting. I mean, there's a number of ways that you can change it.
Yeah, it's an interesting card.
Yeah.
And it's one of those cards that a lot of people hate and a lot of people like, so it's tough.
Yeah. But what I think is very interesting to note is that they are considering adjustments, and they didn't want to jump the gun and make the card unplayable. So I think even if you don't like this card specifically, you should be thanking the dev team that they're not necessarily jumping to like, okay, well, we're going to nerf this card to oblivion while we fix it. It's like, no, we're just going to leave it in and let it be, because it's still like, again, it's still a playable card, and it still leads to some interesting gameplay. Okay. The next one is pilfered goods and card stealing in general. And their statement is, losing against your own cards when an opponent draws from your deck can be a frustrating experience, especially if you're playing with deck buffing Freljord artifacts. Pilfered goods is a particular culprit, as its power level is rather high, and drawing multiple cards is more likely to create stole the perfect card situations. We're investigating possible adjustments that can ease the pain surrounding the mechanic. Again, much like Unyielding Spirit, there's a lot of elegant ways to change these cards and make them feel not as bad. I do think that at least a card like Pilfered Goods or Black Market Merchant could actually get the mana cost treatment and be okay, because like 3 mana, draw 2 cards is still a good card. Like, it doesn't have to be 2, you know?
Yeah. I think one of my favorite ideas about just the pilfer effects in general is making them draw from the bottom of your opponent's deck, similar to like toss. It feels less bad knowing that they didn't just take your top deck to win with. So I think that could get rid of a lot of it. Still makes the card effectively does the same thing for what you're using it for. But it doesn't feel as bad for the opponent.
It's definitely a psychological thing in most cases. Now, like, it stealing Omen Hawk stuff is kind of like it's a feel bad, but also like that's kind of like part of the reason of the card, right? So, and like people who are like, oh well, I didn't want them to draw my top deck. Well, when you don't know what it is, drawing the top card or the bottom card is irrelevant. So that's like sort of a thing, but psychologically it makes people feel better. Unless you know what the top card is, or like there's an ability specifically on the top card of your deck.
Like Draven's biggest fan.
Right.
Or I mean, I had someone take my gigantic Starlit Seer the other day. It was like +12 Starlit Seer they took, which that felt bad. I still won because that guy sucked. But that guy was just a big butt person. But I mean, it still feels bad. But I did get to do the double thumbs up emote when I crushed them in the face.
Nice.
Bam. But yeah, I don't know. I think that could be reasonable, because I'd be super sad if these effects got like somehow removed. I don't think that's happening, by the way, just full disclosure. But I love the whole plunder and pilfer effects. I think it's very, very cool.
It is very cool.
I love it.
It's another one of those things that like we can only see in a digital card game, because Magic won't let you have cards from your opponent's deck in your hand, because that just creates very weird situations.
The sleeves are different.
Sleeves, and like you want to keep your hands off of you want to keep people's hands off of other people's property as much as possible. Next one here is Nexus Damage, Rising Tides, Rising Tides thematics and mechanics, pirates, plunder, Noxian siege weapons, etc. have significantly increased the amount of direct Nexus damage available to players. We've seen some problematic problematic, potentially overloaded Nexus Damage decks arise as a result, and have made some targeted adjustments in this patch aimed at making early damage more preventable. Access to healing is another potential lever for these regions that boast it, and we've adjusted a few cards to provide better options. The scope of this issue is rather large, so we'll continue to monitor it and effect of the changes of this patch over time. So direct damage is potentially in a not great spot. If you overload it, it is one of those things that's like hard to counteract. I mean, healing is a good way, but just a good to know that that's on their mind, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
And then
I think the biggest thing that I like about these aren't even the specific points, but just like the transparency of the team itself. I like knowing as a player and as a content creator, like I like knowing what they're doing and what they're working on. So I love that.
Yep, absolutely. And then last one is Karma and Ezreal. They shared some thoughts before, which we've talked about, detailing some of the problems with the existing designs. We've adjusted Karma in this patch, and Ezreal's seen a drop in win rate since the release of Rising Tides. So at the moment, we're just continuing to monitor both champions. Again, both Karma and Ezreal are ones that people talk about all the time, and I think at various levels. They have various win rates. I can say, as someone who has watched probably more tournament Runeterra than most other people, the only other person I know for a fact that's seen more than me is Casanova, who's my casting partner and casts more than I do because he's a crazy, ambitious, bushy-tailed, young, bright-eyed child compared to me.
Don't let the fluffy tails fool you.
Don't let the fluffy tails fool you. I've been fooled by the fluffy tail many times. I get fooled every time, actually. I've never not been fooled.
Every time.
Ezreal has certainly seen a downtick in play and certainly a downtick in tournament dominance. From a meta perspective, I see way less Ezreal, both in tournaments and at, relatively high level play. I mean, I've been playing Diamond and Master the last, month or whatever. A lot less Ezreal. There's been some Bilgewater Ezreal. There's still there's a number of different Ezreal builds that exist, but it's not the same, even when Freljord Ezreal was at the top, that was way more, it seemed at least way more dominant and way more played. Draven Ezreal saw more play than what's, Karma Ezreal seeing now. So I think there's still, people still don't like the combo aspect of it of oh, well, I'm at 14 health and they just have 7 burn spells that kill me. People are always going to hate that. And sorry, I guess. I kind of hope that they keep that because that's one of the things that makes it feel different to me than Hearthstone, ironically, even though Hearthstone is about the lack of interaction on your turn, your opponent can't interact on your turn. And that's part of that. But setting up the combo is something that they don't really allow too much in Hearthstone and stuff like that. And you can do that in Magic. So I don't know. I think they're in a fine spot now, but again, it doesn't take much for Ezreal to be really, really good in a meta.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I like this it being on the watch list and not being changed because I don't like balancing based on emotions. I like balancing based on logistics. So
absolutely.
So I think it's fine.
Yep. And again, we talked about the cosmetics, a lot of expedition changes, which we don't go over on the shows, but for those expedition fanatics, of course, they're in the patch notes. You can check those at your leisure. But Saucy, that's it. That's a wrap. That's patch 1.2. We're just about up on time. Any last minute stuff you want to talk about or go over before we cut it here?
I don't think so. I like them buffing up fun cards that are seeing no play. I think that as someone who likes to try and make shit cards playable, I'm happy. I'm ready to play some slot bot decks, and maybe we'll get the unyielding monkeys. We'll see.
someday. For me, I think it was some slight little nudges for a couple of champs. I don't think it was enough for most of them. And then some pretty big potentially meta warping cards, or at least deck composition warping cards like the Badger Bear, the Grizzled Ranger, the Burn cards. I think that's going to change up a lot. And I didn't see anything from Sea Monsters get touched, and that was a pretty good deck before. Also, Mono Demacia Bannerman was pretty much one of the best decks, period, before Badger Bear came out, and none of those cards from that deck got touched. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm very excited to be casting some tournaments coming up with the new patches, and those will be fun to check out. But Saucy, where can people find you on the internet when you're not here and not in the Discord?
Yeah, you can find me. All my stuff's just on my website, saucymailman.com. YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Saucy Mailman. I'm always doing the thing.
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter at _Blevins. Been casting a lot of tournaments, sometimes on my channel, twitch.tv/theblevins, sometimes on Casanova's channel, which is twitch.tv/CasanovaHots. If you like watching Duels of Runeterra or Jam Fest, all those events, been casting those. Very soon, I'll have an announcement to make about another tournament series that may or may not be casted by yours truly, but that will have to wait probably until next week, if not the week after. But yeah, so that's fun. But again, guys, best place to find both myself and Saucy, discord.me/Runeterrable Radio. The Discord has been popping off lately.
Yeah, it's been crazy,
which has been awesome and really fun to have everyone in there. So make sure you're joining there if you haven't already. But for Saucy, I am the Blevins, and we will talk to you guys next week when we have more Legends of Runeterra to talk about. We'll see you then.
I got a little